to the first speaker, Chasity W.
Hey there. Grateful recovering addict named Chasity. I was really excited about being here. But I just want to go ahead and start it out and just be real honest, because step 8 requires honesty. The honesty that we learned about in step 1, the spiritual principle of step 1. And I can't tell you how many times I almost called Grant and told him I wasn't going to be here. Basically I've been struggling with some mental health. I went several days without showering, just functioning on the bare minimum. I did some praying, and my higher power said, suit up and show up. And so that's what I did. My network told me not to make any big decisions. And so, I committed to this, so I'm going to suit up and show up. As you can tell in those two things, that I know how to take suggestions today. Narcotics Anonymous taught me that. So I'm just going to kind of dive right into it. I did take some notes. I love the basic text. Talking about making amends and writing a list. I had to put Narcotics Anonymous on my 8-step list because I've been around a long time, and I remember I stumbled into a meeting at about 15 years old, and everybody was talking about this book that would save your life. And I'm like, well, I got to get the book, right? And so I went up to the chairperson afterwards, and for some reason they didn't have them for free. They were selling them, and I thought, well, the dope man has all my money. And so as soon as she turned away, I snatched that book and headed out the door. And so I'm like, all right, so I'm going to write Narcotics Anonymous on my 8-step list. And I got the willingness to make the amends, and so my amends to Narcotics Anonymous was buying basic text for newcomers. And I did that for a lot of years. I didn't have to do it for a lot of years, but it felt good, and I wanted to help another addict. And so that was kind of my little dabble into the 8th and 9th step to begin with. But so like I said, this honesty that I started talking about, the basic text says that we have to work the 8th step as if there is no 9th step, okay? Because how are we going to be honest if we realize that we're going to have to face this person and we're going to have to apologize or make this financial amendment? How are we going to be honest if we're projecting future tripping into what's going to happen, right? So, so I honestly write these names down in these institutions or places or whatever, and, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. I don't know about anybody that's worked an 8-step in here, but I'm going to tell you, I had to pray for a lot of willingness, okay? Because there were some people on my 8-step that had also hurt me. And that was very difficult, It does say in the literature that we can use our 4-step to make some of our 8-step. And so, I had to also look at forgiveness for a lot of those resentments that I wrote down in my 4-step, right? And, so I had to practice the spiritual principle of forgiveness so that I could write them down. And I forgive because I want to be forgiven, right? That's what the literature says. So, so I wrote people down. A lot of people write down parents and siblings, co-workers, friends, so on and so forth. I did not write my dope man down. I didn't feel like that was necessary. But I'll share with you this. I wrote down people that I knew I had a part in it, because going through the steps taught me that I did play a role, that I did have a part in a lot of things. And so, so I wanted to make sure that I was going to own my part. We write this 8-step, and we have to eliminate that fear, the fear of whatever, the possible future tripping that we're doing, because step 3 taught us that fear is the lack of faith. So we're going to have faith that our higher power, that we've already established from step 2 and 3, that our higher power is going to carry us through. And like I said, I had to do a lot of praying for willingness. That's what I was told to do because there was a lot of them I wasn't willing to write down. And I'm going to be even more honest with you. It took a couple of 8 steps before I'd really get all of them wrote down. And that's okay, too. That was my process. So I want to go on to step 9 real quick, and then I got some experience, strength, and hope I'm going to share with you. How you like that? So both 8 and 9 are action steps. These are things that we're going to have to actually do some work. That's going to require more than writing and sharing with our sponsor, and that's okay. In step 9, that's when we put this willingness. The willingness that I prayed for, I had to put it into action. And once I'm aware of all these people, that I need to make these amends to, in step 9, awareness calls for action, right? When I'm aware of something, I got to do something about it. And so, my sponsor always told me, Chasity, your awareness is impeccable, but it's what you do with that awareness, in that awareness, that's going to count. And so, I had to put my nose to the grindstone, and before, my sponsor always told me, she also told me that before I make an amends, that I need to practice step 3 and turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Because I have to check my motives when I'm making these amends. It's not about clearing my conscience. It's about owning my part and making a true apology. And we all know that the best apology is a changed behavior. Okay? So I'm already changing the behaviors, but what I got to do is, I've got to own my part. I've got to take responsibility for my actions, which is something that I never did in active addiction. But I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. I'm going to own it. I'm going to say I'm sorry after I've changed the behavior, and we're going to be good, right? So I'm going to share a little bit of experience with you, because I got some experience with these 2 steps. With my mom, I had a real rocky relationship with my mother, and it was very toxic. I gave her a lot of power and control over my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I let her dictate my behavior a lot. It was just very toxic. But I played a part, right? I would fight back with her. I would say hateful, nasty things to her, show her no respect. Call her wasted at 2 o'clock in the morning. I worried her to death if I was going to be alive or dead the next day. So I wrote out an apology to my mother, and it was probably one of the most heartfelt letters that I had ever wrote in my life. And I owned all my stuff. I was making a list and checking it twice, y'all. I'm telling you, like there couldn't have been a better letter. And, I prayed. My motives were good. Everything was perfect. And I called my mom, and I read this letter. I talked about this letter. I poured my heart out. I was sobbing, bawling, crybabying, everything. And then when I got done, there was a silence. And my mother said, "There's no room for forgiveness." And I was crushed. I was literally crushed. But here's the thing, I had an expectation. The literature says without expectation. So I immediately hung up the phone. I didn't even say bye to her. I didn't say nothing after she said that. I rocked my world. I called my sponsor. My sponsor says, "Well, that's all right, because it ain't about you. This is you cleaning your side of the street. You cleaning your side of the street. It ain't about her. What she does with her side of the street is her business." And so that really helped me. That gave me some freedom, to know that my side of the street was clean, that I did what I was supposed to do. I was doing the next right thing, and that was good with me. Now I'm going to get real vulnerable. I'm a partial PK kid. Some of y'all might know what that is. I'm a partial preacher's kid, okay? That's part of what's wrong with me. I lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather was a pastor. And so I have some church trauma, we'll say that. I was a 15-year-old runaway. and 15 years old, running the streets, going from dope house to dope house. Anywhere I could lay my head at night where I could get high, that's what I did. I started real young. By the age of 16, I was a 3-time convicted felon. Back then, I've been clean for a couple minutes. Back then, there was garage bands were real big. Everybody had a garage band. Everybody knew how to play, guitar and keyboard, whatever, And so I liked hanging out with the garage bands because I liked music and I liked getting high. And so there was one night we were all sitting around, and I'm gonna stop right there and say this, because I'm hesitating, but I know that there's no big eyes or little eyes in Narcotics Anonymous. It doesn't matter if you're from State Penn or Penn State. Everybody in here has the last name Addict. Okay, so that right there just relieved me of all the judgment that I feel like I'm about to feel. So I feel free now. We were sitting with this garage band one night, and they're all talking about how they need new this and new equipment and new that. And I'm like, man, I know a place. And I took them straight to church. Straight to church. We robbed them of everything. Everything. We got back to the house where we were staying at. And they're all excited. And then it hit me, man, tomorrow's Sunday morning. How are they going to worship? Man, you want to talk about some guilt and shame that I freaking carried? And I'm like, man, it can't be no worse, right? I robbed my higher power's house. That was weighing on me. That's what I was carrying on my shoulders. And that's a lot of step 8 and 9 is relieving us of that guilt and shame that we carry around, right? So for a lot of years, I carried that with me. I thought, man, if I ever step foot in a church again, the pits of hell are going to open up just for me. That was what I believed. And scared of it, too. You best be believing it. And, so fast forward, I'm working these steps, because that's what Narcotics Anonymous told me would give me some relief. And I wrote the church down on my step 8. And it comes to step 9, how am I going to make this amends? Now, let me tell you something about sponsorship. Sponsorship is the heartbeat of the program. You want to know why? Because they will save your ass. So, accept when to do so would injure them or others, right? Make amends to such people whenever possible. Accept when to do so would injure them or others. So, we all have heard our best thinking got us here, right? So, my best thinking is like, well, I'm going to go to the church and I'm going to apologize and tell them it was me. And then I'll turn myself in if I got to and blah, 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 blah. That was my bright thinking. And before I went on this little road trip that I was planning, I called my sponsor. My sponsor says, accept when to do so would injure them or others. We're not supposed to go to jail. What are your kids going to do? Okay. So here's what we come up with that would be my amends. I would make a trip to that church. And I'm going to tell you what, I walked in there. I asked to speak to the pastor. He was there. I knelt down at that altar. And I swore I wasn't going to get up until I felt the relief and the forgiveness that I needed in my heart for what I had done and all that shame and guilt that I had carried for all those years. I was squall bagging. That preacher knelt down beside me. I'm sure he thought I had done something real bad. And I got up and I felt relief. And that's what I needed to do for me. That's my story. And my sponsor also said, it's not about putting you up on a pedestal either. So you're going to make anonymous donations to this church. So I made anonymous donations every time I got that tax return check every year to that church for 15 years. I didn't know 15 years, but I felt like that was the right thing to do in my spirit. So that's just part of my experience that I've had. It's important to remember that except when to do so would injure them or others. Because it's not about, having to make more amends to your family for going to jail or whatever else. You know, and it's the best policy is to check with your sponsor before you make an amends, so that you don't do more damage. It's not about creating more damage than what you've already done. Where am I at with time? So anyways, also in, I can't remember if it's in the basic text or if it's in It Works How and Why, but it does say that if we avoid these steps, that we are subject to relapse. I don't know about y'all, but I had enough of that in the beginning of my story. I didn't want no more of it. So anyways, I'm excited to be here. This is right up my alley. I love steps 8 and 9. I love all the steps. You know, it was a real journey for me. You know, I work them still to this day. I've been clean. It'll be, 22 years, 11 months, and what's today's date? Oh, 22 years and 11 months today. And I got today. You know, thank you. You know, it's not been easy, but it's been worth it. And I've been through more clean than I ever went through using. And I definitely can tell you that, you know, I'm one of those ones that I still struggle from time to time. You know, I've not done this perfectly for 22 years. The only thing I've done perfectly is not put dope in my body. You know, I have definitely done my fair share of having to admit more wrongs and make more amends and promptly admit them. You know, that's definitely part of my story. But so I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm excited to hear what else is gonna come. You know, if you're thinking about working steps, I suggest that you do it. You know, I come from a time where they said, "Work the steps or die, motherfucker." And I'm more of a soft sponsor now, and that's okay. My fiance says I do gentle parenting as well. My first two will absolutely argue with that. I wore their asses out. So, anyways, thanks for letting me be here. This has been an honor and a privilege. You know, I get excited whenever I'm asked to speak. You know, it's really hard to screw this up because all we have is our experience, strength, and hope, right? That's hard to screw up. So, thanks for letting me share.
Everybody, my name's Glenn. I'm an addict. Hey, Glenn. And, wow, it's a great day to be clean, man. I get excited about recovery, man. I love recovery. And listen, I want to say that mental health is a very, very, very difficult thing that a lot of us struggle with. And thank you for sharing that, because I struggle with the same struggles myself. You know, I've gone through weeks without getting out of bed, man. So, it's no joke, man. I was 18 years clean, and I checked myself in to a mental health facility for 3 weeks because of depression and anxiety. So if anybody's in here struggling with that stuff, man, it's okay. And we're allowed to share about that shit, because in NA we can share about anything. I love it. As long as it's recovery related, man, I can share about it. You know, and I love that stuff, man. I get so excited about recovery, man, because the person I was when I walked in here, that person doesn't exist anymore. September 9th of 2004 was the last day I got high. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And they told me, if you forget the last day you get high, you're bound to repeat it. So yeah, September 10th, 2004 is my clean date. So I just celebrated 20 years, and I can't believe that, man. You know, and that's not me. That's you. That's this program. That's working steps. So if you're new and this is your first convention, man, you're sitting here and you're putting money into your recovery bank. You're actually, you know, building on your recovery just by being part of this. If you're new, man, work steps, man. That's where the answer was for me. And you want to start to heal your relationships? Work some traditions. And how did I figure out all the traditions? I broke them all. And somebody lovingly came up to me and said, "Hey, Glenn, come here. We don't do that shit in here. You know, but the 8th and 9th step. So I had to work all the steps before that, right? And I couldn't just walk in here the first day and then go tell my wife a couple things I shouldn't have told her, right? We had this guy, Freddie, room temperature Fred up in New York, man, an older black gentleman. He took me in when I got clean, man. And he had like 14 years clean. He was dealing crap out of the back of his car, jeans, dungarees, sneakers, CDs. He got the bright idea he could be Nicky Barnes and sell dope and not use. And after 14 years clean, he went out and got high. And by the time I got into the fellowship, he was already back for like 5 or 7 years. And he used to tell me all the time, Glenn, if you keep on living the way you were living when you were using, eventually you're going to have to use to make sense out of the way you live in. So for me, the 8th and 9th step is not saying I'm sorry. It's changing the way I'm living, right? So I need to work all the other steps to get to this place. Like I need to work for a good, my first 3 steps are setting me up for a relationship with a God of my understanding. And my 3rd step is my willingness to do things his way instead of my way, right? Because Frank Sinatra recovery didn't work for me, man. Whenever I did it my way, it was bad, So, and then the 4th, 5th step, I kind of really looked at myself. It was an inventory of who I was. And I did some really great things, even in active addiction. I did them for the wrong reasons, but I still did some really great things, right? And then 6th and 7th step, come on in, man. 6th and 7th step, it was like I had to look at my character defects. And then I had to ask God to remove my shortcomings, right? So character defect, I got a flat tire. My shortcomings, I drive on it. Right? So I can't remove those things myself. I need God to get involved with that again. And for me, that's this program, right? And if you're struggling with God, man, a group of drug addicts. I listened to Randy share about that last night, man. Right? If you're here, you're in the right place, right? A pal greater than me was the disease of addiction. It kicked my ass every time I used. Right? I would go down to the middle of Brooklyn and I would stuff money in a hole in a wall in a basement somewhere waiting for a bag of dope to come out. And I would tell myself I wasn't going to get high the next day, and I was there again the next day. If that ain't a pal greater than me, I don't know what is. Right? Then I come in here and they say, well, Glenn, you need to get a pal greater than yourself. And all it has to be is loving, kind, and greater than you. I got trust issues. Dude, you were sticking money in a hole in a wall in Brooklyn somewhere, waiting for a bag of dope to come out. Half the time it was soap. And it was like, you ever try smoking that shit? It was horrible, man. So, so we get here and these steps are setting me up to have a relationship with this power greater than myself. And now I did all this work in 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I know who I am now. Like I really know who I am. Like some of the real grimy shit, I know who I am. And how do I release myself from that shame? Well, that's what the 8th and 9th step is for me, man. Right? And the 8th step is we made a list of all people we had harmed and became willing. Again, 3rd step, we became willing to make amends to them all. Making amends ain't coming up to you and saying, hey, man, I'm sorry. Because I did that so many times in active addiction. Like, yeah, they would turn around and go, yeah, you're sorry, all right. Right? Making amends was me changing who I am. Right? And I know some people in this room, man, and I'm sitting here, and I'm talking about this shit, right? And I know that there's amends I have to make on a regular basis, even in recovery, man. But we have another step for that, and that's not this meeting, right? That's the 10th step. But the 8th step is I had to make a list. I had to become willing to make that list. I had to become willing to put people on there that I had resentments in who harmed me. So I had to practice forgiveness before I even did that list, right? And I had to be able to, be willing to put them on that list. In fact, my older sister is on my list probably from 2006, and I've tried to make that amends a couple times, and it didn't go well. So I don't consider that amends made. So she's still on my list. There's a couple people, My parents both died before I got clean. They're on my list. And I had to figure out a way to do that. And you talked about sponsorship, man. It's amazing. Like, I get so caught up in this head that I can't think my way straight. And I go and I talk to my sponsor, and he gives me the simplest solution, man. Go, dude, write a letter and bring it to the grave and read it to them. So I put them on the list because I was like, how do I put them on the list if I can't make the amends to them? And he's like, well, here's a way. And the 8th step even talks about sometimes we start to think about how we're going to do the amends. Not what the outcome is going to be, but how we're going to do the amends, and that gives us the willingness to put people on that list. Right? So now I made this list. My sponsor's going, you forgot someone, asshole. I'm like, what are you talking about? I put everybody on this list. He goes, what about me? What about you? And if you treated me the way I treated me out in active addiction, I would have killed you. The things I did to myself to get the next one, I would never let another human being do to me. Right? So I had to put myself on that list. I had to be willing to look at me. And so when I came in New York, man, we used to have, the walls would be covered with all these little posters with slogans and shit. Easy does it. If you can't get high, if you don't pick up. They used to have think, think, think. And they used to turn that thing upside down all the time, right? And I used to go in there and I'd walk in the meeting and I'd turn that shit right side up because I'm a little OCD. Finally, somebody grabbed me by the arm and says, what are you doing, asshole? Just leave the signs alone. I says, it's upside down. He goes, so is your thinking. Right? And they had a sign in there that said, let us love you until you learn to love yourself. And I still struggle with that at times. That's those days I don't get out of bed. Right? That's those days where the depression and stuff kicks in. Right? And everybody sees me and I'm such a lively guy and they're like, how are you? Just get over it. Okay, well, yeah, just stop shooting dope. It's like the same thing, man. You have to put some work into that stuff. And I do. I work on that all the time. But that is making amends to me. Right? So the 9th step is I have to go and I have to make amends to all these people, all these institutions that I've robbed, right? All these places that I've done harm to. How do I make amends to a community that I terrorized while I was using, man? I become a youth counselor. I coach baseball and soccer teams and stuff like that. I give back. Like I took for so long, and I give back. That's the way I make some of those amends. And not to injure anybody, right? I had to look at myself because I'm an anybody. So if I make this amends, am I going to hurt myself? And if that's the case, and I just can't say, yeah, well, this one, I'm just going to check off the list because I'll hurt myself. And my sponsor turns around and says, great, you checked them all off the list. And then you need to do this, and this to make up for that amends in a different way. This is about freeing me, right? It's about freeing me from all the guilt and the shame that I walked around with during active addiction, during recovery, right? So the 8th step, I want to go back to the 8th step. I had some struggles. So I was married for almost 30 some odd years, 36 years. We're divorced now, but when I did the 8th step, we were still married. And how do I put that woman on the list if I'm not willing to change the behaviors? Right? How do I put that person on that list if I'm not willing to stop doing what I was doing to her to begin with? And then I had to realize that I'm not just hurting her, I'm hurting me. I'm hurting my family. So we got divorced like 2 years ago. We separated in 2017. We got divorced finally 2 years ago. And my sisters don't talk to me. My children don't talk to me. And my ex-wife don't talk to me. or because of my behavior after the divorce, while the divorce was happening, while it was going on. And a lot of that I don't own, but I got to own my part in that, right? You know, so if I was doing an 8-step today, that would be that would consume most of my 8-step. Why did I put myself into a mental institution 2 years ago? Because I was going through this divorce, and I was really afraid I was going to hurt somebody. Like her lawyer was going to get it, you know? And it's horrible, man. And it's all about money for me, right? So who's the God of my understanding? Is the God of my understanding a being greater than myself, or is it my pocketbook? What am I worshiping? Holy shit. I went to a meeting one day, and it was for the convention in Murfreesboro, the VRC in Murfreesboro. And I went to this meeting for a fundraiser for that, and they had a speaker come in there, and I hated this bastard, man, because he stood up there and talked about how he worshiped money more than the God of his understanding. And that just hit a nerve so hard and deep inside of me. My behaviors are driven by that. And so I need to look at that on a regular basis, man. Again, this is stuff that more will be revealed. We have a whole chapter in our basic text about this, right? This is stuff that when I got to go through another 8-step again, that this is all stuff that's going to go up on that, right? And even if I've changed the behavior already, I still need to go through it with my sponsor. I've had the same sponsor since I got clean for over 20 years. That is the most intimate relationship I have in my life, right? Everybody's like, oh, you're intimate with your sponsor? What's all that shit about? Intimacy. That's intimacy. Intimacy. He knows everything. There are no masks. Part of this 8th and 9th step is to change my behaviors and let people see who I really am. Because when I did a lot of the grimy shit that I did to you, I was doing that under a false pretense. I was doing that under what my disease wanted me to do to get the next one. That's not who we are. An addict is who I am, but the things that I did in active addiction don't define who I am. Especially if I stop doing them, right? And that's what this is all about. Working steps till you get up to 8 and 9 and changing your behaviors, and then going back to people and letting them know that, you know what? I did some really horrible things, man. And I know that I hurt you. And I don't want to hurt you no more. In the 6th and the 7th step, when I was working on that stuff, right? And my character defects would flare up, and I would see the hurt look on somebody's face after I just did some stupid shit in recovery. That hurt me, man. Because I saw what I was doing to people. I was willing to, you were talking about awareness. So I can become aware, but if I don't change the behavior, I'm going to be aware of everything that I keep doing. It's going to hurt me even more. So I got to start to change who I am. And listen, my sponsor, when I got here, man, he says, Glenn, I wish you a long, slow recovery. I was like, what the fuck is that all about? He goes, you got a long way to go. So I hope to be on this journey for the rest of my life, man. Hey, give me a sign when you need me to stop. You know, I hope to be on this journey for the rest of my life. I love recovery. If you're new in here, man, welcome. If you've been around in here and you can't get out of bed tomorrow, welcome. Right? Because we get better in here. And by becoming vulnerable to people, it frees me and it allows that person to talk back about that when it struggles in their lives. I can remember getting on the phone with my sponsor and talking about some really grimy shit that I was doing. And I can remember him crying on the phone. And I'm like, Ralph, what are you doing, man? And he goes, I'm doing the same shit, but I couldn't tell nobody. The people I sponsor have no idea what they do for my recovery, man. no idea. The things that I've learned from people I've sponsored. Like, I sit there and go through someone's fourth step, and I was like, oh yeah, shit, I did that. I didn't put that on my fourth step. We're gonna have to talk to my sponsor about that shit, right? I've had sponsees come up to me and tell me the way I was treating them was unacceptable. Nobody's ever done that in my life before, man. This fellowship is amazing. And if you're in here and you're struggling and you're sitting on the outside, jump right into the middle, man. Like, I've never, ever turned somebody away who wants this program. But if you're new and you're in here and people are asking you to do some things, man, and you don't want to do, I got to let you go. They told me when I got here, if you want what I have, do what I do. So I work the steps, I work the traditions, I work the concepts, I get involved in service. This whole meeting next door is about service, man. What are you doing for Narcotics Anonymous? Narcotics Anonymous freed me from myself. There's no way I could ever pay back that debt. I've been doing H&I for like 20 years, man. I had 3 months clean, and they said, well, you can't share until you have 6 months. And it takes you 3 months to get trained, and you need to start coming to our subcommittee meetings for 3 months, right? I went for 3 months. By the time I was trained, I had 6 months. And I've been doing H&I since then, man. So almost 20 years. I can't give back. I can't outgive what NA's given me. You know? Coming here and like being asked to come up here and speak with you guys is a blessing, man. You know, if one person hears one thing that God put in my mouth, then you know what? I'm good. If nobody heard nothing, then God didn't put it in my mouth. Right? And that's just me talking. So, you know, again, how am I doing? 19 minutes. Oh, 19 minutes? Oh, fuck. We can go on forever, man. Yeah, no problems. You know, I love Narcotics Anonymous. The 8th and the 9th step are so important. People gloss over those really quickly. You were saying that, like, that doesn't free us from who we are. That doesn't free us from the guilt. I've walked around with so much shame in my life for so long. This is a process of how to release that shame. And it's a process when I start to change what I'm doing, I'm not putting more shit on the shame pile. Right? And again, we have another step right after that is the 10th step. So I can do this on a daily basis. Right? It's a mini 8 and 9, the way I look at myself. But again, I need to do all the steps before this. I need to work them with a sponsor before I come in and do an 8th and 9th step. I've sponsored people who were here for like a week and wanted to go tell their wife some shit, and I was like, you're out of your mind. What do you mean? You're still the same old fuck up you were before a week ago. Why are you just going to tell her? She already knows that shit. You're just going to cut somebody up without injuring them. You need to start to do some changes in your life. And I took that to heart, man, because I came in here with a family. I was a father. I got clean at 43 years old. I had 3 kids. I had a wife. I had all that stuff. I had so much guilt and shame piled on top of me. When I got here, I wanted to make some amends right away. And my sponsor was like, yeah, they're in an order for a reason. So let's get to work. You want to get it done? We got to do X, Y, and Z first. You know, and I got to turn around and I got to start to make changes of who I am before I can even attempt to do something like this. You know, I love recovery, man. It's freed me. It saved my life. I get excited about recovery. I moved from New York down to Nashville back in 2018. I was in that area until April of this year, and I moved out to North Carolina for a little while in Franklin in the mountains, and I just bought a home out in New Bern, North Carolina now, so I'm out by the ocean, right? And the recovery there ain't so hot, right? And like I'm talking to my sponsor about it, and he goes, well, looks like you got to put more in. because I'm not getting out what I need. And he goes, well, then you need to put more in, right? So I need to be aware of that. Maybe that's why God put me out there. You know, maybe that's to give a little spark to Narcotics Anonymous, man. If you're sitting in here and you're not doing service, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on this a little bit. You're robbing from Narcotics Anonymous. And service can be anything, man. Service can be opening your mouth and sharing in a meeting behind a newcomer who just shared and who's struggling with something that you shared, that you've gone through, and give them an answer. Service it looks so different in many ways. Part of my amends is to do service in Narcotics Anonymous. I was saying about how I terrorized the communities I lived in. Well, I don't do that anymore, you know. So part of my service is doing service back here, you know. And I thought I was the bomb, man, because after 3 weeks I was here, they came up to me, and up in New York, the chairperson runs the meeting, right? So after 3 weeks I was here, they says, hey, I want you to be the chairperson. And I was like, really? That's great, man. How do I find the speakers and this and that? He goes, no, dummy, come here 20 minutes early, set up the fucking chairs. When we're done with the meeting, put them back away, right? But you know what? I had to do that, man. I drove around with a coffee pot in the back of my car for a year. That was the best commitment I ever had, man. I got there 20 minutes early. I made the best coffee up in the Hudson Valley in New York. And people came to see me all the time. What that did for the base of my recovery. I struggle with a disease that's self-centered, man. And when I get out of self and do something for somebody else without anything attached to it, God blesses me, man. The God of my understanding. I'm so thankful for what you shared. And I'm just grateful to be asked to come here and share on the 8th and the 9th step. And I hope somebody heard something that, you know, sparked them up, even if you've been here for a long time. You know, I know that I need to remain open-minded. Spiritual principles, man. You know, because I can character assassinate your ass while you're up here sharing, and, like, it just doesn't work that way. I've been to meetings before where I was like, this guy is sharing the same shit again, right? Then I go outside and I hear two people talking. That was the best thing I've ever heard. That wasn't for me to hear that night, right? So I need to let that person recover just the way they're recovering. And maybe somebody else needed to hear that. And the God of my understanding doesn't come down in a burning bush, or doesn't have me walking down with some tablets in my hands or any of that shit. He sends people like you into my life to let me know that this is where I want you to go. This is the direction I want you to go in. So again, if you're struggling with that GOD word, man, group of drug addicts. That's a power greater than myself. If I told you guys I wanted to get high and you all stood by the door, I wouldn't get out of here and I wouldn't get high today. That's a power greater than me. You know, so anyway, my name's Glenn. I'm an addict, and thanks for letting me share.